The difference between being a technician versus being a business owner. So this is going to be basically a story about how there's a time where I noticed myself being too deep into the weeds and not much enough looking at the business from a top level down. And you can get caught up in that. And there's a certain level where it has to transition, right? Like at the beginning, when you have a couple jobs a year, you're working the jobs yourself, right? You have to be a technician. But for your business to ever expand to the point where you're not what I call self-employed, a self-employed entrepreneur, you have to get to a situation where you're overseeing the ground, right? So for me, that was like year 2, year 3 of the business. I would say for sure year 3 was definitely where I had to put people in place where they had to basically run their division of the company, run their area of the company, and I had to just basically oversee them, meet with them, and execute with that from that standpoint. But I did notice and I did realize that there was a time when I realized I was doing too much, right? And that specific story was that when I was doing the moving part of the business at the very beginning of Helping Hands, I was moving. I showed up for a job trying to make an extra dollar, and I had to move a laundry and dryer unit from the 3rd floor of one building to the 3rd floor of the next building. And I remember moving that down the steps and thinking to myself that you will never catch me at another job site. And I have not showed up to another job site to do the actual labor since. I've also had to talk to my employees about this, like people that I put in middle management positions. Have to talk to them about, hey, making sure that we are. It's not necessarily. I mean, people like to use the word delegate, but it's really systems in place, right? Like there needs to be a system that is thought of and implemented by the middle manager, and then executed upon by who they are overseeing from that side of the fence. And if that system not in place, then it directly falls on to the middle management person. So when you find yourself stuck in the weeds, doing too much, feeling like you're at the ground, micromanaging, you haven't put a good enough system in place for whatever your role and responsibility is. So that's what I would say. There has to be a mental switch that happens that understands like, and like I said, don't think of it as delegation, think of it as a system. But it has to be a mental switch that happens to be like, I am in control of, my job is to put a system in place for this specific thing. And once you put a system in place for this specific thing, that is what we have put you in this middle management position for. A way for you to think through what is the best way for our company to be successful and for us to manage and be able to have insight into the ground and understand KPIs so that we can have a deep understanding of what's happening at the ground based around the system that you put in place. So that is what real middle management is. That is what, like, when you get yourself out of the weeds and you start overseeing different divisions of a business, you're in charge of creating the system, the process. So there's a couple things that I can touch on regarding this. I just dive into it a little deeper. Is skill doesn't always equal scale, right? So you could be the most skilled at your trade, at your job, at your specific thing, but that doesn't always mean that you have the ability or the understanding of how to go from 5,000 to 5 million, right? The way to go to 5,000 to 5 million is always based around systems in place. From rev operations, revenue operations, to sales processes, to customer success processes, to retention and upselling, to product development, bug tracking, getting these things complete. Like this whole entire thing deserves its own standards and process of how we handle it if it comes up, and it needs to be created and implemented from the top down for the side of things. So that's how you're going to go from skill to scale. So some different tools that you can use to shift from doing to leading is you got to put the SOPs in place. You got to put KPIs in place. You have to have ways to measure things, and then you have to meet You have to meet consistently to determine like, all right, is this working? Is this not working? And continue to make adjustments. But that's how you go from everything is me showing people how to do things versus people understanding how to do things and me monitoring and managing from afar. But you have to get what you know, your internal knowledge, down on paper, and it has to be put into a system of what expectations are. And that's how you go from being a technician to being a true business owner that can then build a $5 million business, starting from $0, you being the person doing the work, to you being the person overseeing 500 plus employees, etc.